Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hello, thank you for coming, Dilip Jeste. I'm so grateful to have you here today on Savvy Broadcasting. We're going to be talking about your wonderful new book, Wiser, The Scientific Roots of Wisdom, Compassion, and What Makes Us Good, as well as why do we need wisdom more than ever? And boy, do we. I'm so grateful to have you here, Dr. Jeste. What even prompted you to write your book?
Sure. So first of all, thank you, Christina, for inviting me. I'm delighted to be on your show. So I grew up in India, and in the Indian culture, like most Eastern cultures, there is a belief that there is such a thing as wisdom. There's an Indian scripture called Gita, and that is kind of the Bible of the Indian religion, and it is focused on wisdom. And also, it is believed that older people are wiser. You become wiser with age. So those are the ideas I grew up with. But I found that in the modern Western world, that is not the case. In the sense, people often, even scientists, don't think about wisdom as a real entity. And they don't think that older people are necessarily wiser. Older people are considered a burden on the society for financial reasons. And I found that that was quite wrong. I became a geriatric psychiatrist. And I actually found that as people got older, they became happier. They of course had lots of stresses, but they knew how to handle stresses better than younger people did. You know, what we call fountain of youth, 20s and 30s, that is actually also a fountain of depression, anxiety, and stress, because there is so much pressure, peer pressure, other kinds of pressure. But the good news is as we get older, we become better at handling that. And that led me to think that it is important to study wisdom. So we have been studying wisdom for the last 15, 20 years. We have published a number of papers in scientific literature. I thought, though, now that it was time to write a book for the lay people, because there's a lot of interest in the public at large. And also, I found that our society in the last 20, 30 years has become increasingly stressed out. Suicides have increased. Suicides have increased 33% in 10 years. Opioid-related deaths have increased tenfold since 2000. There is something wrong that is going on, and that reflects on the societal wisdom not being where it is, and it should increase. And that's why I decided to write a book for the lay public.
Wow. And for me, explain for the audience and myself, what exactly encompasses wisdom? What is it? Is it applied knowledge? Is it deeper than that? What is it?
So wisdom is a personality trait. It is a trait like resilience, optimism, introversion, extroversion. It defines the characteristic pattern of behavior of a person. And, you know, just like we know how people are, whether some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. Similarly, the various components of wisdom are there in different people to different extent. So there are several specific components of wisdom. The first one is pro-social behaviors, things that we do for other people. That is empathy and compassion. Empathy means sharing somebody's emotion. Compassion means acting on it and helping others. So that's the first one. Second is self-reflection, ability to look inwards, ability to understand ourselves. Third is emotional regulation, control over our emotions. Think about a teenager. His emotions fluctuate hour to hour, minute to minute. And think about an older, wiser person. Is calm, collected, doesn't get ruffled easily. So that is emotional regulation. And there is one more, which is acceptance of diverse perspectives. So I may have strong values about something, But for me, it is okay if somebody else has different values. I don't have to agree with that person.
Yeah.
And if somebody has different values, that doesn't mean that one of us is either evil or dumb. No, there can be rationale, but I don't agree with that person. So these are the components of wisdom: empathy, compassion, self-reflection, emotional regulation, and acceptance of diverse perspectives.
Wow. That last one, acceptance, stands out for me as often, I think, what makes our life so stressful, because we will have a difficult situation and you'll be upset with it. You'll want it to be different. You'll push against it. And it seems like the more you push against it, the greater it gets. And somehow I'm getting from you that the acceptance of it allows us to be wiser about it and go through it without struggling as much.
That's exactly right. I think we have to accept reality. We have to accept stress when it occurs. We have to accept differences in perspectives, differences in value systems. And they're good for the society as a whole. I think the difficulty is today, in today's world, there is so much polarization that people go to the extreme views and then they don't want to talk to one another.
Can we stop and go there? Why is that now? You had mentioned modern society has that much more stress. There seems to be a loss of societal wisdom. Why now? Why has this come about now more than ever?
I think for the last about 25, 30 years, two major changes have occurred in the world. First is globalization. The world has come together, and that's great in many ways. But it has also increased competition. It has also increased diversity to which people are not used to. Another even bigger thing is the technology growth. Technology has expanded enormously. Every day things are changing. Even the Zoom call we are having, we couldn't have had until some years ago. So technology has been wonderful in many ways, but also has been hurtful in many ways. Social media, for example. People have committed suicide because of the social media hurt that is imposed on people. And there is so much competition. And again, increased stress because there is 24-hour news cycle. And we constantly get bad news. Nobody talks about something good happening. The only news that gets prominence is something bad happening someplace in the world. So all those things have caused so much stress, anxiety, loneliness. Loneliness is the modern behavioral pandemic.
And, I think for me, and I had thought this many years ago, that if I were to be inflicted with anything, the worst thing ever, I would say dying alone or being lonely. It's probably the worst feeling to not have others to, and you can be around a lot of people and still have that sense of loneliness. And now you mentioned the globalization of the world, so much diversity, but a news cycle that is negative, negative, negative. It's almost put us into teeny weeny little bubbles where we're more separate than we've ever been from each other, which I find very interesting. You think with all of this technology, we'd be more connected, but it's almost like we're less connected.
You're exactly right. You hit the nail on its head. The number of connections has increased, but the quality of connections has gone down. So, for example, young people, they may have 500 Facebook friends, but they don't feel comfortable with most of them. And you often, again, the bad news is what attracts attention. So criticism attracts attention. And then there's the cyberbullying and things like that has spread. And so what has happened is that the loneliness has increased in spite of increased social connectivity, apparent social connectivity. And so loneliness is a subjective feeling. It doesn't mean you're not surrounded by people. You can be in a cave and not feel lonely, or you can be in a dorm with 100 other students and feel very lonely. And the loneliness has increased. And so loneliness is associated with increased number of deaths from heart disease, diabetes, obesity, dementia. Did you know, most people don't know this, average lifespan in the US dropped before COVID in 2016-17. Why? Not because of any infections or anything like that, because of loneliness-related deaths.
Wow. And I'm guessing it did not help when COVID hit. I mean, because now a lot of cities were having people forced inside, which probably increased the loneliness that much more. Now, what is your take? Because I know your book probably goes deeper into wisdom and how we can apply that into our lives. But where do we begin? If we can just drop a few insightful ideas for people on how they can begin to bring wisdom into their lives and get rid of some of these things, like bring self-reflection and emotional regulation and acceptance. And how can we begin to add some of these wisdom traits?
That's exactly right. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And our studies have shown that loneliness and wisdom go in opposite directions. So if you have high scores on wisdom, you're not likely to be lonely, and vice versa. To me, that means that wisdom is a vaccine for the pandemic of loneliness. And so how do we increase our wisdom? There is actually some literature where studies have shown the ways of increasing components of wisdom. So, as I said, there are different components of wisdom, and each of us is strong in some components and weak in some components. And we need to increase the things we are weak in, right?
Yeah.
So there are ways in which we can increase each of the components. For example, let us take pro-social behaviors.
Cool.
There used to be something called gratitude diary. So that you write something in a diary, a few things that made you feel grateful before the end of the day. And people thought that would work well. It didn't work too well because people got bored writing after. So now what is recommended is called 3 good things. So before going to bed, either write or talk to your partner or spouse or somebody 3 things that made you feel good. And it could be because you did something good for others or others did something good for you. But always think about 3 good things before going to bed. If we do that regularly, and if that becomes our second nature, we get up in the morning thinking about what 3 good things I'm going to think about.
Yeah.
So you become more compassionate and more pro-social as a result of that.
Yeah.
Another way is volunteering for something outside your job. We are all busy and that's fine. But if you can set aside, say, 2-3 hours a week to go to a nursing home and help people with dementia, or go to children's residential facilities and help children with disabilities, children with autism spectrum disorder, something like that, that is feasible, but just do that regularly. And another is meeting people who are different from you on a regular basis, just twice a week. People who are different in appearance, people who are different skin color, who come from different countries, and also who have different views and different perspectives. Because if we meet with different people, that'll make us richer.
You know what? I wanted to just stop there. I had met someone, Dr. Jeste. There was a lawyer who said what she likes to do, because she likes to meet people, is she will once a week go to a local Starbucks and just go up to a stranger and say, "Hi, my name's so-and-so," and just start a conversation. "Can I sit down? Can we chat?" And she said, "I just love doing that once a week, just to meet random new strangers if they're up for it." And I suggest everyone do that. And it would be a great way to not feel lonely and also get over any fears you might have about expanding yourself and meeting new people.
Right. Exactly. No, you're exactly right. And that makes the other person feel happy. And then they would do something for you because you made them feel happy. And that's so, and you don't lose anything in that process. You only gain something. So it's a win-win situation. Yeah, no, exactly. Meeting people of that kind is very helpful. Another thing I recommend is self-reflection exercise. These days, most of us are aware of the importance of physical activity, right? I think many people go to the gym, go for a walk, do other things at home. So typically, we would have said, we set aside half an hour, 1 hour, 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we set aside half hour, 3 times a week for self-reflection? So we can say that, and we do it regularly, it becomes second nature. So after breakfast, after lunch, whatever, or before bedtime, we spend half hour thinking about things that happened during the last 48 hours. Things that made us feel happy and things that made us feel stressed out. If we do that regularly, we'll find there is a pattern that emerges. Specific kinds of things make us unhappy and specific kinds of things make us happy. What is it? So we learn about ourselves by just thinking like that.
Yeah.
All that it needs is this kind of self-reflection exercise. Set aside that time for yourself, only your thinking.
Yeah.
Because we have to know ourselves better, right?
Yeah.
Before we can do something.
Yeah. You can't change anything if you don't see it. And what's cool about that, you might realize a moment where I was at the gas station, I got angry at someone. You could look back and they'd be like, okay, I was angry at that moment. Why? What caused me to have that reaction? And by exploring that, you begin to say, okay, it's because I felt uncomfortable because it was dark and he approached me quickly or whatever it might be. And then it might go deeper. Well, I was abused by my dad and that brought up some bad feeling. It just had to go deeper and deeper and peel the onion layers of yourself to see more and more of why you act the way you act on a daily basis.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, knowing ourselves is the first important thing, most important thing to do in a way to change ourselves. And because we are often good at judging other people, not that good at judging ourselves.
Yeah, we all like to not turn the mirror around. It's a little bit more uncomfortable. Well, Dr. Jeste, we could go on forever. You are fascinating. And I know this talk has opened people's minds to hopefully explore deeper, learn themselves and become wiser. It'll make their lives a lot happier. But I don't want us to leave without everyone finding out how they can get their very own copy of Wiser. How can they do that? So
I have a website that is dilipjestemd.com.
Awesome.
So you can go on that website, you'll find that. But you can also get the book on Amazon. So it is called Wiser. And Scott Luffy is my co-author. So it is Jeste with Luffy.
Yes.
If they have any problem, they can let you know and you can let me know and then I will help them with that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to spell it for everyone. Dilip is D-I-L-I-P. Jeste is JESTEMD.com to find out more and get a copy of your book today. Thank you so much for coming to Savvy Broadcasting and sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you, Christina. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Same here.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.